We have come from the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, which you call KUCCPS. Our main duty is to place students to universities and colleges and polytechnics and TVET institutions and teacher training institutions in this country. We are also in charge of offering career mentorship or giving career guidance to schools, to teachers, to students in Form 4 and in Form 2, and to everybody who is in need of those services. We are a government agency. We were established as KUCCPS by an Act of Parliament in the year 2012 under the Universities Act. And from 2014, we have been doing this to all the Kenyans at no cost. So we're also in charge of dissemination of information. Like here we are exchanging and disseminating information on programs that are available in all the training institutions in Kenya and the costs of those programs, because the issue of cost is something that can determine whether you choose this or the other institution, the cost of undertaking that program. And so we need to tell you upfront before you make a choice or during the time you're making a choice on the cost of that program. Because as a student, what you want to do is to pursue a career. You don't want to go to an institution. What is it that I want to be? Then you look around and you see your teachers and you say, in any case, they're not looking so bad. So let me be a teacher. Then I also can come back here and tell people I was a student in Kandege secondary at some point, and now I'm a teacher. And you see I'm alive and I'm enjoying my career. Then you choose education. So those are issues that are very key in terms of principles: merit, affirmative action, and choice. If you don't want a program, don't choose it. Because if you do, we will place you. We might just place you into that program. Then you say, you know, these groups, people have placed me in this, and it was my fourth choice. It means there were people, you remember we started by merit, is it? So it means there were people who merited more than you for that program number 1, A, B, C. There were people who merited more than you did for the program you chose as the second. There are people who merited more than you did in your program number 3, and that's why you have landed in program number 4. What are the eligibility criteria for you to be placed by KUCCPS? Remember, there have been very, very recent developments in the management of placement to universities and colleges by KUCCPS. The government has made certain pronouncements which we are implementing. You must be a Kenyan citizen, because if you are placed by KUCCPS in a public institution, then you qualify for government capitation. You also qualify for Higher Education Loans Board. And if you qualify for government capitation and help, it therefore means that you qualify for monies that are being paid by Kenyan taxpayer. And if you are a Kenyan, then the Kenya government owes you a responsibility. That is why the issue of citizenship is important. We have 69 universities in Kenya. Out of those 69 universities, 39 are public. And we place students who have scored A plain, A minus, B plus, B plain, B minus, C plus, C plain, C minus, D plus, D plain, D minus, and E. All all of those students qualify for placement to pursue a career of their choice at degree level, at diploma level, at craft level, at certificate level, and at artisan level. So at KUCCPS, we are leaving no Kenyan behind. Regardless of your performance at KCSE, you have something in you that you need to move forward to in terms of a career, in terms of a profession, in terms of a vocation, to enable you transition into a member of the society who is productive and useful in building the nation and contributing to the socio-economic development of Kenya. This examination that you are going to do at the end of this year, called KCSE, is not a university qualifying exam. And I need to be very clear on that. There are some countries and some curricula where an examination is administered at the end of the high school cycle. It is called a university qualifying examination. So when you get into the system, you learn a lot. It educates you, and it answers a lot of your questions and worries so that you are able to make wise decisions and wise choices. That is as far as cluster subjects go. The next thing about clusters is called cluster points. The weighted cluster points. The weighted cluster points are generated as a result of now adding all the 4 cluster subjects. Then you get your cluster weight. So if it is medicine, like I've said, you have straight A's in maths, English, chemistry, biology. And then somebody has 2 A's and 2 A minuses. And someone has 3 B pluses and 1 A in those 4 subjects. Somebody has 4 B's in those subjects. So now the system will gauge and rank and find each and every one of those candidates cluster weight, is it? And obviously, the person who has straight A's in the 4 cluster subjects will have a higher cluster weight than the person who has 4 B's in the 4 cluster subjects. It's obvious, it's natural, is it? You understand? Are we together? Are we together? Yes. So now, we are at the point where we are placing these 4 students. One had 4 straight A's, another had 2 A's and 2 A minuses, another had 3 B pluses and 1 A, and another had 3 B's. In terms of qualification, all of them qualify for that program. True or false? They qualify because they have the minimum cluster subjects performance for medicine, is it? It is the most qualified student will get to that slot first, regardless of their background, social or economic or political or ethnic or cultural. The other principle is affirmative action. Affirmative action is a constitutional issue in this country. We have the National Council for Persons with Disability. So affirmative action obtains in 3 ways. Number 1, gender. There is the issue of gender. And gender doesn't mean girls or ladies. Gender means the balancing of either of them. So for instance, if we have a class where maybe Bachelor of Science Nursing, and the capacity for that class is 100. And out of that 100, 93 are ladies. So we will use the gender criteria to get 10% of that to men or to boys or to males, and vice versa. So it is not about, you know, when people talk about gender in this country, they think you're doing something to ladies that you're not doing to men, is it? Or you're doing something to men that you're not doing to ladies. Or you are favoring one and disfavoring or discriminating the other. So that is not how we apply gender. We apply gender based on how many people have been placed into this program. How many are boys, or how many are male, and how many are female. If there are more males than females, then we stretch the capacity by 10% and exclusively place only male. If that higher percentage of the class is female males, we will stretch that by 10% and exclusively place female students. So that is how we apply the gender rule in placement. Disability obtains in 3 ways. The first way is hearing impaired, visual impairment, and then physical disability. So again, if you suffer or if you are born with any form of those disability, physical disability, hearing impairment, or visual impairment, then you get to a program by 2 points less than the rest of the abled students. You move in, if the cluster is 34.231, then with disability, you get in with 32.231. And that has also enabled students who have any of those forms of disability to get a place. Visually impaired, hearing impaired, and physical disability. What happens is, by the time you are eligible to benefit under that category, number 1, you must be registered by the National Council for Persons Living with Disability. And number 2, you must have a registration certificate or a card. And number 3, the disability should be before you sat for your KCSE, not after. The argument or the logic is, you have, that form of disability may have affected in one way or the other your performance in the exam. So if the disability comes, God forbid, after you have received your results, then it is implied that by the time you are doing or you are sitting your KCSE, you are fully abled, and therefore you don't qualify. So disability would have meaning if it is registered and it occurred or you are born with it. That is before KCSE. The last item on affirmative action is marginalization. So if you come from any of those marginalized areas that have been gazetted, then you will qualify for 2 points less the cutoff for that particular program. And this is how affirmative action for marginalization takes place. Number 1, you must have sat for your KCPE and KCSE in that area that is categorized as marginalized. So how do we apply the application process? Again, this is something that is changing. Before, we would collaborate with the principals and career guidance teachers and open the portal for principals to help you apply in third term. It was called center application. So the entire third term, when you are doing your KCSE, you would get assistance from career guidance teachers and the deputy principals and principal to apply. But now, because of the regime that we are going into, where you must have some other information, including the program cost and so on, we are considering changing so that students will only be able to apply after they have received their results. Now, as we are speaking, with effect from Monday this week, all the way up to Tuesday next week, that is 30th of May, we are doing what is called revision. We have allowed all Kenyans to make revisions for the choices they made during the center application. When they were doing the center application, they didn't have results. Now they have results. And so we are giving them an opportunity. We are in all the 47 counties. We have our officers on ground in all the 52 Huduma centers countrywide, and also in some selected universities and colleges, where our officers are seated in a tent, waiting for parents and students and guardians and teachers to come, ask questions, and be guided and be assisted to revise and choose new courses if they didn't do so. So the exercise will go on up to Tuesday next week. So, like I'd said, on the placement criteria, only those who apply for placement are considered for placement. Those who don't apply are not placed, because we have no way of knowing, we have no way of processing your feelings or your wishes. The only way to express your wishes or your feelings is to apply. And when you apply, you go into a cyber, or you go into the computer if you can have it at home, or you go to any Huduma center countrywide and you ask them that you want KUCCPS services. They will guide you. You go to our KUCCPS portal, you go to students login, you click students login, a window opens asking you for your KCSE index number. You put it there. Then it asks you for your year of KCSE. Your case will be 2023. Then it asks you for your password. The password would either be your KCPE index number or your birth certificate as you used it when you were registering for KCSE. And after that, your window or your portal will open. So it will ask you to choose the courses that you want. You'll make the choices. It will tell you the qualifications that are required in terms of the subject clusters. If you qualify, it will tell you, yes, you meet the minimum requirements for this program. Go ahead and apply. Before we avail or before we publish the programs from each and every university and college and polytechnic and TTC, there is something called capacities. Capacities is the maximum number of students an institution is allowed to admit in that program. The maximum number of students. And this is derived or determined by the Commission for University Education, which is a regulator. You have the maximum capacity of students that this school can accommodate, because they have so many bathrooms, they have so many toilets, they have so many classrooms, they have so many laboratories, they have so many dormitories, and the size of the dining hall is this much, is it? And so there is a capacity that they cannot go beyond. The same happens to when we are placing students to programs. In that medicine, there are teachers or lecturers and professors. How many do they have? How many technicians? What is the size of the hospital that they are using as their teaching hospital? How are the sizes of their laboratories? What is their staff size? How big are their lecture halls, and so on and so forth. So all that makes a case for determination of the capacity. There's something called cluster. I've talked about it. Cluster points, or weighted cluster points, or cluster subjects, and so on and so forth. For each and every career that you want to pursue, there is what we call cluster subjects. So, if I want to pursue medicine, and these cluster subjects are 4, maximum 4. Some would be 3, some would be 2, some might be 1, and so on. Some might be none. It will tell you no cluster subjects required. So, if I want to pursue law, their cluster subjects for law is English stroke Kiswahili B plain and minimum grade C+. That is the cluster, those are the cluster subjects for law. If I want to pursue medicine, the cluster subjects for medicine is maths, B plain, biology, B plain, English stroke Kiswahili, B plain, mathematics, B plain. Those are the 4 cluster subjects for medicine. What are the cluster subjects for teaching, education? Bachelor of Education, Arts, number 1, cluster subject, English, at least C plain. Number 2, Mathematics, at least D+. And 2 teaching subjects that you now want to pursue in college, C+, C+. Those are the cluster subjects for education. And so on and so forth. Engineering, mathematics, physics, language, that is English or Kiswahili, and then chemistry. So those are the cluster subjects for engineering, and so on and so forth. There are some that they don't have cluster subjects. When you go into your portal, you will see. So the capacity for medicine in that university is 3. But we had counted how many? We had counted how many? Are we together, students? Yes. So the capacity is 3. What will happen? Obviously, because of the weight, the cluster weighting, the gentleman or the lady with 4 straight A's will go in first, right? That is merit. That is the size of they have a bigger, a larger cluster weight. The second person would be the candidate with 2 A minuses and 2 A's. They would go in, right? The third person would be the gentleman or the lady who had 3 B pluses. Is it? Then the class is full because the capacity was 3. Are we together? Yes. Then the class is full. And so we cannot place 1 more. Even 1 more, we cannot place because the approved capacity for the program has been attained. Now, the cluster points for the 3rd student, that is the last student to be admitted, then the class becomes full, is called the cutoff for that program. So when we talk about cluster, I need to take you slowly so that you understand There's the cluster subjects, then there's the weighted cluster point, and then there is the cutoff. The cutoff for the program. So the last student admitted into a program, their cluster weight becomes the cutoff for that program, for that university, for that year. And I think in one of the questions that were written or read out, there was the question of how come some universities have different cutoffs from others, is it? And I hope I've answered that question. That is how it is. How many can go into the program? We at KUCCPS and NEC have what is called performance index. So the clusters are not calculated based on grades. The clusters are calculated based on performance index. So somebody should not lie to you that, you have an A in maths, so A is 12, and take a 12 apple. Then you have a B plus in chemistry, B plus is 10, and take a 10 apple. Then you have B plus again in mathematics, and take a 10 apple. That is now 12 plus 10 is 32, right? Then you have A minus in this, and take a 11 apple. How many are those now? So your cluster is 43. Oh, you qualify for medicine. No, those are grades. If I were to break it down a little, what performance index means is more or less like marks. Because I will have 10 A's in biology, and I'm able to rank them and know the strongest A and the last A of the 10. At points wise, they are all 12, is it? And they are all A's, and they are appearing in your slip and your certificate. But we and NEC are the only people who have the capacity to rank the 10 A's and get the last person of the 10 or of the A or with an A. So that is how it works. So don't waste your time trying to calculate, or a cyber person telling you, oh, your cluster is this and this and that. That is not what we mean by cluster weight or cluster points. It is not there. It is in the performance. So there would be an A in history of 92, an A of 89, an A of 87, and A of 86. Peripherally, all those are A's. But now when they get to us, we know. We have a formula that will now tell us, in terms of the performance index, which A is stronger than the other. Are we together? Thank you.
Ang iyong mukha'y lagi na lamang sa isipan ko. Bakit di magawa nitong damdamin ang paglimot sa mga nagdaan? Sadya nga bang ganyan? Pag nagmahal ay